I have a new student who wants help with a term paper for his philosophy of mind course. And I was looking at the syllabus, and it talks about a lot about the mind-body problem. It looks like a few weeks were spent on the mind-body problem. Anyway, for this term paper, he has to explain some theory or concept and that he's learned about in his philosophy, Intro to Philosophy of Mind course, and then challenge or support it. And so I was thinking about how, well, this is great because I am a philosopher of mind, and his course is taught by an Englishman, so you know, he's getting help from a philosopher of mind whose native language is English, which is pretty cool. But what if I get carried away? Because why would you spend weeks talking about the mind-body problem? There is no mind-body problem. All there is that the mind-body, the brain, the part of the body that is the mind, the brain, has this instinct to see itself as not a brain. That's all. So the mind-body problem is that the body is it doesn't realize that it's a body, and is like, hey, there's this like other mind thing. There's no mind-body problem. You're a body. That body includes a brain, and that brain is the organ responsible for your experiences, thoughts, perceptions, interpretations, etc., 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 memories, etc., etc. That's all. And so then, as I was questioning my criticism of the course and the fact that, can you hear me? And the fact that this be still covered, I thought, well, you know, maybe it's useful to know sort of the development of our ideas, right? The history of the philosophy. Actually, no, not in this case. The whole discussion about the mind-body problem was just that instinct, that problem of the body inventing some separate mind. Everything after that, once we started realizing what the mind actually is, that's when philosophy of mind started. So if you want to cover in the first week of your philosophy of mind course, oh yeah, so humans, even ones that thought they were smart, were all like, oh, what's this like special like spiritual like ether thing that's producing this speech, that's somehow like sending signals to my mouth. And they invented a problem that didn't exist. They're like, oh, okay, there's that, and then there's this. Oh, okay. And then so that's your first week, and then in your second week, and for the rest of the 16 weeks or 14 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever, talk about what we've learned in like the last 30 years. You can talk about Phineas Gage, right? And how we should have realized with Phineas Gage that there was no mind-body problem. So that's what you can do. You do your first class, that's it. You can talk about Descartes, talk about whatever you want. Then you'd hit us with Phineas Gage. So he has this rod that goes through his brain. And like that changed his personality. And we were like, what? He's a completely different person because his brain was messed up? Yeah, and by the way, when you talk about Descartes, you can also talk about how we thought that the brain cooled the blood. That the soul was here, and as blood went up here, and the brain would cool it. So talk about Phineas Gage. You should talk about Freud in your philosophy of mind, because that's important for our very recent realization that there is no self. So you can again talk about how humans had this sense that there was a self. And then also Freud was right about how there are these disparate parts, in fact. And there is no, but he was wrong because there is no sort of central self. They're just the disparate parts. Okay? And then just start fucking talking about actual, I mean, this, unless it's a history class, then say this is the history of the philosophy of mind, or the prehistory of the philosophy of mind. Now you can spend weeks talking about the mind-body problem. But if you want to do an introduction to the philosophy of mind, stop talking about questions that are fucking stupid. That's like spending weeks talking about nature versus nurture in an intro to biology class. Oh, is human biology, or in a psychology class? Oh, is human biology or psychology a product of our environment, or is it a product of our genes? Okay? So absurd. You would never talk about that. You would say, oh, that's a stupid fucking question. Actually, nature gives us the body, and then the environment changes the body, or triggers things that were potentially in the body. That's it. It's like talking about, it's like spending weeks on the chicken or the egg question in an evolutionary biology class. Oh my gosh, and you know how people are just like, oh, we don't know, did the chicken come first or the egg come first? And you just spend weeks talking about that. And then towards the end, you give a little update. Oh, by the way, yeah, it's the egg, because obviously a chicken can't come from an egg, but an egg can come from something that that doesn't make the cutoff for a chicken if we had to draw a line between two generations. You can't, but yeah, it has to be the egg. And then something ever so slightly that maybe almost doesn't qualify as a chicken is what produced that egg. And there's a mutation in that reproductive process. Okay? So funny. The mind-body problem. Nature versus nurture. The chicken and the egg. Humans just love talking shit about the same questions for ever. Wait, I gotta add one. What about why am I here? We love to think, and try to say this in the least judgmental way possible. The human mind has an instinct. I don't know how long this question of why are we here has been asked. I don't know whether it's ever since we had a concept of purpose and objective that other species don't seem to have, and our ability to anticipate perhaps had developed so much, which meant that being able to anticipate means being able to see the relationship between a possible future state and your current state, being able to compare that to your needs in order to meet some objective, right? So when all of those brain faculties were developing, when the brain faculty for an objective that, in order to do this, when we were able to, of course, other species also have this, but maybe it's much more limited, right? So they maybe can have 3 steps. I need to pull this thing in order to access the food, or I need to maybe pull this thing in order to pull this thing in order to access the food, but I think now we're pushing it. So we have a very developed sense of, or ability to, I don't want to say we're very good at it, but we have a very developed sense of objective. We also could have a sense of that our presence. We can also have the faculty of not just receiving information, but also observing a blank in the information that we have. All right, that's what questions are. And other species have that as well. They go, but they don't ask themselves as many questions as we do. We are more sensitive to blanks in our understanding. Not as sensitive as we think, but we're more sensitive than other species. So you take all those faculties together, the ability to consider objectives, the ability to wonder, to to without, yeah, well, I think I explained that well. And the ability to acknowledge our presence, this kind of sort of metacognition. Also, yeah, okay, so you put those three things together, plus, if this question only appeared since, let's say, organized, because I think a lot of religions in the past, the gods didn't give a shit, so about us, they were just doing their thing with the world, and we were just part of it. I don't really know enough about religion. Maybe it's since Judaism. Maybe it's I don't really know. I don't even know. Do the Hindus would Hindus wonder, oh, why am I here? Why has God put me here? Hindus might wonder, why am I here? They might not phrase it, why did God put me here? Why did the gods put me here? Whatever. The thing is, no matter what version of the question you ask, if you're asking why you here, you're assuming that there was an objective to your being here. We've known for a while that that assumption is pretty unfounded, right? That there was no entity that was like, oh, I need to like put humans here. That humans just happened. And so then the question becomes really absurd. You can ask how we got here, right? So if I want to ask, like, why is that tree here, right? Immediately when I say that, you're going to assume I'm asking, how did that tree get here? And what conditions are allowing for it to stay here, maybe? So how did it get here? And what are the mechanisms of its staying here? Its interactions with the environment, etc. You're not going to stay up at night asking yourself this question, why is that tree here? You could just ask maybe locals or Google it or something. And if you want to know why you are here, well, if you've never heard of Darwin, get started there on Wikipedia. And then you'll know why you are here. So anyway, the humans just really like these fake questions. I mean, not because they actually really like them, just because they don't realize that they're fake questions. No, you know what it's like? It's like spending weeks in an evolutionary biology class on creationism. Or Genesis. Or like, I don't know, a physics class about, or a geology class or something. I don't know. But like in every class, they talk, all right, so humans, we thought, we wondered a lot, and here were the different solutions. You know, a lot of people thought that maybe the Native Americans thought that the Earth was the shell of there's some Native Americans that thought the Earth was the shell of a turtle. Yes, wasn't that interesting? That was one a possibility. And you talk about all these different gods and all these different blah blah. And then at the end of the class you mention, but then actually we studied the world. But you'll have to learn more about that in Biology 200. I'm getting upset.